The first time she said it, it sounded almost playful. Don't look there. The words drifted across the late afternoon air like dust shaken loose from a saddle blanket. The rancher stood by the fence, one boot hooked on the lowest rail, hat tilted low. He had been staring across the creek where the cottonwoods leaned and whispered, their leaves flashing silver in the sun. He did not turn when she spoke. He only tightened his jaw, as if the muscles there had learned a language of their own. I'm not, he said, though his eyes never moved. She stepped closer, boots crunching gravel, the hem of her dress catching on a thorn. You always say that. The ranch had once been louder. Years ago, it rang with voices, with the clatter of pans and the laughter of men who stayed too long at supper. Now it breathed like an old animal, slow and careful, every sound measured. The rancher had measured his life the same way since the fire took the house and the creek ran black with ash. He measured mornings by how much coffee he drank, evenings by how long the shadows stayed before night finally claimed the land. Across the creek stood the old barn, half collapsed, its door hanging crooked. People said it should have been torn down long ago, that nothing good came from places that refused to fall when they were supposed to. He knew every rumor. He had heard them while buying nails in town, while standing silent as men talked louder to fill the space he left empty. Don't look there, she said again, firmer this time. He finally turned his head, not toward her but toward the sky, as if the clouds might answer for him. You ever notice, he said, how folks always tell you not to look at the very thing they're afraid of? Her eyes flicked to the barn and back. Some things aren't meant to be watched. That was when he smiled, a thin, cracked thing that hadn't learned how to mean kindness anymore. He had arrived in the territory with nothing but a mule and a name that wasn't his. He built the ranch with hands that bled and a will that didn't bend. He had learned early that land remembered everything, every hoofprint, every dropped nail, every lie whispered into the soil. When his wife died, the land remembered that too. It remembered how he stood in the doorway of the burning house and did not run back inside when the roof groaned and gave way. People had asked him why. He never answered. The barn across the creek had been spared by the fire, standing alone while everything else turned to smoke. Afterward, he found marks on its walls, scratches that looked like writing until you stared too long and they turned into nothing at all. He told himself it was old wood splitting, the work of time and weather. Still, he locked the door and threw the key into the creek. Time passed. Time always did, whether it was welcome or not. Then she came, riding in with a wagon of books and a smile that did not ask permission. She said she was a teacher, said the town needed a school closer than a day's ride. She said she would stay in the old bunkhouse until she found something better. You won't, he told her. Find something better, I mean. She laughed, like the idea of better was something she could build with her own hands. She noticed things others didn't. The way the rancher paused when the wind shifted. The way he avoided the creek at dusk. The way he watched the barn, not like a man guarding property, but like someone keeping vigil. Don't look there, she said one evening when she followed his gaze. He kept staring. In town, men had begun to whisper again. They said the rancher talked to himself. That he walked the fence lines at night with a lantern, stopping to listen to the ground. That sometimes, when the moon was thin as a blade, you could hear a voice from the direction of his land, calling a name no one recognized. The teacher did not listen to whispers. She listened to him. What happened in that barn? She asked, not accusing, just curious in the way that made him uneasy. Nothing, he said. She raised an eyebrow. Nothing doesn't usually leave marks. He drank more after that. The staring became a habit. He would stand at the fence for hours, eyes fixed on the dark mouth of the barn. The teacher tried to distract him with talk of children and lessons and a future that involved more than just surviving the next winter. He nodded, answered when required, but his attention always drifted back. Don't look there, she said one night, her voice sharp enough to cut. Why? He asked. Because whatever's there is already done, she said. And you can't undo it by watching. He looked at her then, really looked, as if seeing her for the first time. You ever do something, he said slowly, and realized later that not doing it would have been worse. She did not answer. The unthinkable did not come all at once. It came in pieces, like a story told out of order. A loose board he pried up from the barn wall. A sound he could not place, low and steady, like breathing. The memory of his wife's voice, not as it was at the end but as it had been at the beginning, when she believed the land could be tamed. He told himself he was only looking. The teacher followed him across the creek one morning, the fog thick enough to swallow sound. "Don't," she said, reaching for his sleeve. He shook her off, not rough but final. "You don't get to tell me where to look." The barn smelled of old hay and something else, something metallic and wrong. Light slipped through the gaps in the boards, cutting the darkness into thin, accusing lines. He moved toward the back, where the ground dipped and the earth looked disturbed even after all these years. He remembered digging there. He remembered the weight of the shovel, the way his hands shook not from effort but from certainty. He remembered telling himself that some truths could not be allowed to live. The teacher stood at the door, her face pale. "We can leave," she said. "We can pretend this place never existed." He laughed, a sound that scraped his throat raw. "Pretend's what got me here." He knelt and began to dig again. The unthinkable was not what he found. It was what he chose to do with it. When the town learned the truth, it came as a story told over too many drinks, the details shifting with each retelling. They said the rancher had uncovered bones, that he had confessed to a crime no one knew to charge him with. They said the teacher had tried to stop him and failed. They said the barn finally burned, a clean, honest fire that left nothing but ash and questions. What they did not say was that the rancher walked into town at dawn, dirt under his nails, eyes clear for the first time in years. He turned himself in not for murder, but for arson, for destroying a building that belonged to no one but him. He did not mention the bones. He did not mention the staring. The teacher left soon after, taking her books and her lessons with her. Children asked where she went. Adults shrugged. The land remembered everything. It remembered the way the barn fell, the way the fire reflected in the creek. It remembered the rancher's last look across the water, not of longing but of release. Sometimes, when the wind shifts just right, people still say you can see a man standing by the fence, hat low, eyes fixed on a place that no longer exists. And sometimes, if you listen closely, you can hear a woman's voice, steady and human, carried on the air. "Don't look there." But the rancher always did.